we're just going to jump into things. So thank you for everyone watching on Facebook Live, and thank you to those watching on Zoom. And thank you everyone for joining us for National Blind Sports Week presented by Healthy Vision Association. This session is going to be a little different than those that have happened so far this week because I will be both the moderator and the presenter. So please pose any questions that you have for me about USABA programs, either in the Facebook comment section or in the Zoom chat and Q&A section. And I will try to get to those at the end. I can't see them throughout like I normally can, so I'll try to take them all at the end because I can't ask myself any questions. So let's dive right on in. Okay, so welcome to National Blind Sports Week and welcome to the presentation about the USABA Sports Program Overview. First off, just a little bit about myself. I am a 2012 Paralympian in the sport of wheelchair fencing. I was 16 at the time, and going to the games is really what shaped me and set me on my path. And when I went to Indiana University, I received 2 degrees, one in nonprofit management and one in recreational therapy, with the ultimate goal of always working towards working within the Paralympic movement. And that is kind of how I found USABA and began my job as the membership and safe sport coordinator. So all that fancy title means is I deal with all of our members at USABA, from someone who has never participated in sport all the way up to those who are Paralympians competing at the games. So anything that has to do with our members in terms of programming, safety, information goes through me. So to jump in about Team USA Goalball, a little background. In 1976, the U.S. Association of Blind Athletes took the first goalball teams to represent the U.S. at the first Olympiad for the Disabled in Toronto, Canada. That competition eventually evolved into the Paralympic Games and is now held in the same years as the Olympic Games, kicking off 2 weeks after the Olympic Games closing ceremony. USABA serves as the HPMO, or High Performance Management Organization, for the sport of goalball. And USABA represents the sport as a member of the USOPC, or US Olympic and Paralympic Committee. We oversee the growth and development of the sport of goalball. We select athletes to represent the US in goalball at Paralympic Games and other large international competitions. So just a track record, since 1976, the U.S. goalball teams have earned 13 Paralympic medals. The women have won 2 gold, 3 silver, 3 bronze, where the men have won 1 gold, 3 silver, 1 bronze, and 11 world championship titles, with women making the podium every year since 1978, minus 1994. In terms of international goalball, the U.S. is a top contender. The U.S. women's goalball team has been described as the most successful program in the history of the sport of goalball. And the U.S. goalball men's team is currently #1 overall in men's Paralympic medal count. The U.S. men's and women's goalball resident program trains in Fort Wayne, Indiana at the Olympic and Paralympic training site at the Turnstone Center. So as most of you probably already know, we are super excited about the fact that the U.S. men's and women's goalball teams have already qualified for the Tokyo 2021 now Paralympic Games. So about how goalball is structured under USABA in the U.S. We host and sanction 4 to 5 regional goalball tournaments and 1 national championship. Participants must compete at a regional in order to be eligible for nationals. The season itself runs from mid-January to mid-July each year. The aforementioned regional goalball tournaments are traditionally held in Detroit, Atlanta, New Jersey Metro, Phoenix, and Columbus, Ohio, typically. National championship sites have varied, but primarily have been hosted in Fort Wayne at the Paralympic and Olympic training site at Turnstone. There are approximately 250 to 350 goalball participants each year, and that number comprises the bulk of USABA's membership. Moving on and switching gears completely to the endurance sports that USABA provides programming and events in, we'll start off with running. So the USABA Marathon National Championships is held in conjunction with the California International Marathon in Sacramento, California in early December. So we have one running competition each year for 125 to 150 athletes and sighted guides. We'll move on to cycling, where USABA hosts 1 or 2 camps a year for a total of 30 to 40 athletes and sighted pilots. This event is typically held at the Colorado Springs Olympic and Paralympic Training Center. In terms of the sport of triathlon, USABA helps to promote USA Triathlon's camp for visually impaired athletes and guides that serves about 15 to 20 athletes every year. So in the past, this has typically been held at the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center, but with COVID and with 2021 now being the year of the games, we're unsure what the future may hold moving forwards. Finally, in terms of powerlifting, USABA hosts one powerlifting event each year where we have typically 6 to 8 athletes in attendance. USABA Powerlifting National Championships is typically held in mid-July in Colorado Springs in conjunction with the Rocky Mountain State Games. To move on to winter sports, USABA hosts 2 annual winter sports events. The first being the Vermont Winter Ski Festival in mid-February in Killington, Vermont, which features about 30 to 35 participants. We partner with Vermont Adaptive Ski and Sport for this event that goes on every year. Our other big winter event is the Breckenridge Winter Sports Fest, held in late February, early March in Breckenridge, Colorado, and features 15 to 18 participants. And that number would be much higher, but it is based upon the lodging that is available at the location itself. And this is actually funded by one of our largest grantors, Anthem Insurance. Moving on to youth sports, USABA hosted the Emerging Stars Youth ID Camp for 20 blind teenagers in 2019 at the Colorado Springs Olympic and Paralympic Training Center. We also hosted a girls' youth goalball camp at the Turnstone training site for 12 athletes that same year. With the LA 2028 Paralympic Games approaching, USABA is dedicated to expanding and strengthening the pipeline of young, blind and visually impaired athletes in the U.S. to create the strongest Team USA possible when the Paralympic Games come home to the U.S. This will be done through talent identification camps, also known as Emerging Stars camps, sport development camps, and the creation of and support of local grassroots programs across the country. The prime athletes for LA 2028 are those that are under the age of 18 right now. And so we want to be able to bolster what the youth development and youth pipeline in the U.S. looks like so that when the games do come to the U.S. and we get a home team bid, we want to be able to provide and promote athletes who are at the highest caliber and highest echelon because they've been able to compete and train with the help of USABA for the past 8 years. Next, we'll move on to veterans programs. So all of our veterans programs or programs that support veterans are titled under this broad umbrella of Operation Mission Vision. And USABA's Operation Mission Vision provides opportunities for veterans to attend all USABA events at little to no cost to them, including, but not limited to, the ski and snowboard events that we talked about earlier, our cycling camps, marathon events, and many more. USABA also works with VA blind rehab centers to provide those who are working with veterans and who are experiencing vision loss the most accurate and up-to-date resources when it comes to sport opportunities for those veterans. USABA's Operation Mission Vision also helps to lead to a smoother reintegration and community living situation by providing each veteran with the opportunities and resources they need, not only to be successful independently, but to be successful in sport and in life. By facilitating these programs where veterans with visual impairments can participate together, we're creating a community built on camaraderie, a shared experience, and helping veterans help others learn how to cope with similar situations. We're next going to move on to the sport of five-a-side football, or blind soccer. So this is an adaptation of the sport of soccer, football, for athletes with a visual impairment. The sport has been governed by the International Blind Sports Federation, also known as IBSA, since 1996 and is played with modified FIFA rules. So football five-a-side debuted at the Paralympic Games for the first time in Athens 2004 Paralympics and has been contested at every game since. And at every game since, Brazil has won the gold medal. World Championships take place every 4 years in between the Paralympics. To begin getting into the sport of blind soccer in the US, in both 2018 and 2019, USABA hosted 3 national development camps each year. USABA anticipates hosting 8 to 10 more camps and competitions per year with a grant that we received from US Soccer once in-person sports can return. We strategically try to host soccer events in cities that we know already have an interest or the capacity to host blind soccer specific events, as there are blind soccer specific fields. Typically, USABA has hosted camps in Baltimore, Maryland, San Diego, California, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Columbus, Ohio. And last, I wanted to talk about kind of USABA's bread and butter, our grant programs. These are something that I'm very passionate about and that I am in charge of directly. So our grant programs are kind of divided into 2 names, but they're roughly the same program. So what I mean by this is the NFC, or National Fitness Challenge, is a program that utilizes Fitbit wearables for participants and provides funding for local partners in specific cities to host those in-person programs and activities. So this is sponsored by Anthem Foundation, and over the decade that it has existed, we have served over 3,000 athletes. So the graphic on the screen is, there's a simple looking pedometer, and under that it says 2010, and then there's an arrow that leads to 2020 that has a high-tech looking wearable. And that's exactly how USABA's National Fitness Challenge has progressed. You know, it started in 2010 with simple pedometers that we asked our participants to wear. And now we're able to provide Fitbit wearables that can pair up and sync with your iPhone, work with your voiceovers, work with JAWS, and just have been able to serve over 3,000 athletes. So the United We Move program, in theory, is the exact same as the National Fitness Challenge. So what I mean again is the United We Move program is the entirely virtual version of the National Fitness Challenge. And this sprung out of the COVID-19 pandemic. We realized that in-person programming just wasn't going to be feasible, and we wanted to still provide our participants with the most opportunities to continue to stay fit, to stay active, to stay healthy, and to stay involved. So USABA staff runs the United We Move virtual programming in the form of Fitbit challenges, workout videos, nutritional resources, and so much more. And as some of you may be able to see on the screen, there is an image of it's a silhouetted image of two runners tethered together. And below it, it says 34 minutes. That's how much average daily active minutes of our 2020 United We Move participants. Between the two programs, USABA averages between 400 and 600 participants nationwide from 15 to 20 partner cities and individuals from over 35 states. And that's each year. So with that is a very quick, but also very deep dive into the USABA programs. So what I want to do is I want you all to see my gorgeous face again, and I want to go to our Facebook and see if we have any questions that have come in, or if anyone on the Zoom panel has any questions as well. If you don't, I know my boss, Mark Lucas, is right next to me, and he will throw some questions at me if you guys don't. One question that I have seen come in, not necessarily on this panel yet, but that I want to address is the question about visual classifications. And so USABA follows the IBSA visual classifications. And what that means is there are 3 visual classifications that IBSA recognizes: B1, B2, and B3. Your B1 is someone who has no light perception in either eye, up to light perception and an inability to recognize the shape of a hand at any distance or in any direction. So your B2 then is someone who has the ability to recognize the shape of a hand up to the visual acuity of 2600 and or visual field of less than 5 degrees in the best eye with the best practical eye correction. Then your B3 is someone who has the visual acuity above 2600 up to visual acuity of 2200 and / or a visual field of less than 20 degrees and more than 5 degrees in the best eye with the best practical eye correction. So those are the 3 IBSA recognized visual classifications. USABA also recognizes the classification of B4. So while these participants can't necessarily participate in international or Paralympic sanctioned events, they can participate in USABA events. And this is someone who has the visual acuity above 2200 and up to visual acuity of 2070 with a visual field larger than 20 degrees in the best eye with the best practical eye correction. So I just wanted to go over those because I have seen a good number of questions come in about that. So the first question is, actually this kind of goes along with the second question as well. So one question is, where are you primarily looking for potential 2028 Paralympic athletes, and how are you spreading the word? The second question that kind of relates is, how do we get involved with soccer? So we're primarily, in terms of which sport, we're primarily looking to expand our pipeline within youth development for 2028 within the realm of soccer and goalball, because these are the sports that USABA closely identifies with, and especially with goalball being a USABA sanctioned sport, we're always looking to further that youth development pipeline. And then how are we spreading the word? So that word pipeline, I know, is kind of an odd word to use, but what we mean by pipeline is we have kind of people throughout the US and throughout the levels of intensity in each sport who are able to kind of assess different athletes, see who we think has the ability to be that higher class, high performing athlete. And we put them through the pipeline and development camps to be able to help them refine their skills and to become better athletes overall. We spread the word kind of just by being involved in the blind and visually impaired community and are able to facilitate these youth programs and facilitate introductory programs that get the ball rolling for a lot of these younger visually impaired athletes. In terms of how to get involved in soccer, you can reach out to me directly, Sarah. If you want to I can either comment my email on your Facebook comment, or if you want to go to the USABA website, you can find our page on soccer and contact either Kevin Broussard or me. And we'll be able to kind of describe and talk you through who in the US is currently facilitating soccer programs and how to get involved in that introductory pipeline. Does anyone have any other questions? Mark Lucas, do you have any questions?
Yes, Catherine. What do you see in 5 to 10 years on how USABA reaches more blind athletes, does more quality programs? What do we need to do as an organization to get to that next level?
Yeah, so I think that really is kind of answered partially by Sarah and Dan's questions about youth is the future of everything. We know there's a cycle in politics, in sports, in schools, in everything. There's a cycle. And in 5 years, if we want to be at the pinnacle of providing sports for blind and visually impaired athletes, we need to start today. We need to be able to create these immersive programs and these partnerships with other programs who are already serving blind and visually impaired youth to be able to get them introduced to specific sports and get them involved in our pipeline. Because, in 5 years, I'll be nearly 30, you'll be older. People who are going to be at the LA 2028 games, they're in their teens now when you really think about it. So to get them to where they need to be for those games, we need to be looking at youth and be able to just embrace, empower, and educate the youth of today to be able to have these high-class athletes of tomorrow. Another question that came in: are there any specific qualifications for someone interested in attending a camp? For example, must an athlete be an elite athlete to attend the cycling opportunity in Colorado Springs? So, first question, as a general, yes, there are specific qualifications for some of our camps. So specifically for the camp that we kind of co-host with USA Triathlon, that one is a high performance focused or a not novice focused event. In terms of the cycling event, that is kind of more middle ground in terms of people who have been on a bike before, but don't necessarily have to be a Paralympic level athlete. it's really to help people hone in on the cycling skills that they have kind of built on so far, but want to be able to move on to the next level. All right. Have you reached out to all the lighthouses across the country who provide services to kids? So yes, in our National Fitness Challenge, as well as in our United We Move program, which are both the Fitbit-based fitness programs, we work with multiple lighthouse facilities across the U.S., and we have a good working relationship with a lot of other lighthouse facilities across the U.S. as well. And so, like you mentioned, that is a really great way to spread the word. Not every organization that helps blind and visually impaired athletes and individuals has to reinvent the wheel. And that's something we firmly believe in, is if someone else has created a program or has X number of participants, we don't want to compete with them for those participants. We want to be able to merge and to kind of facilitate programs alongside other organizations. So yes, we have worked with some lighthouse facilities across the U.S. Some, depending on area, some have a different number of youth athletes, some have more elderly athletes, some have every type of athlete. So it's really just finding which lighthouse wants to, work in the programs that we are able to facilitate, and B, who have athletes that are interested in our programs. Right. Well, if no one has any other questions, I'll just spit this out. If anyone wants to contact me, either to learn more about USABA programs, to learn about how to become a member of USABA programs, or about USABA in general and kind of our reach and what we do outside of just direct programming, my email is cbouwkamp@usaba.org. So one last question just came in that I want to answer, and it was, do you participate in any sport? So I kind of touched on this a little at the beginning. I was a 2012 Paralympian in wheelchair fencing. So I was born with a mobility impairment, but not a visual impairment. And for me, going to the Paralympics and seeing all of the different types of disabilities is really what opened my eyes and encouraged me and got me into the mindset of working with USABA. So that's kind of my sports background, and that's why specifically I want to be able to provide more sports opportunities for youth in the future of tomorrow. So with that, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to stick with me and for participating with us during National Blind Sports Week. Tomorrow will be the triathlon trifecta, starting with the USA Triathlon Director of Paralympic Program, Amanda Duke-Boulay, at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. This is followed by a live Q&A with para-triathlete Amy Dixon at 12 p.m. Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Then the trifecta will be rounded out with a live sport-specific workout from para-triathlete Kyle Kuhn at 3 p.m. Mountain Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Then tomorrow evening will be a joint webinar with USABA's CEO, Molly Quinn, and National Federation of the Blind's Colorado Chapter Vice President Jessica Beecham to discuss what both organizations do, how seclusion has affected our athletes during COVID, virtual opportunities, and a lot more to kick off the month of October, which is National Blind Awareness Month. So with that, I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you and good night.